left him to the HR people? Because as you correctly say, disciplinary matters are HR matters.
Yes, Chair, because it is the HR persons were already dealing with a possible extension of the suspension. He was looking for compliance comments to support in doing that. So that's why it came to me from the compliance perspective. Is there something that I could support it? Because if it goes then to the HR, it is more likely that the HR would grant a suspension. But that is when I picked up on those issues, I could not then, without having those issues addressed, grant or finalize at that stage. And I said, let's speak to the Chief of Police.
Sorry, I don't understand. You say in your statement that he came to you regarding the impending expiry of the precautionary suspension, and I understood your evidence earlier to be exactly that. He came to speak to you about an extension, or that the suspension is about to expire. What do we do?
Yeah.
I understood that to be your evidence.
Chair, my evidence, yes, in the main, but it was about trying to get compliance support from me to give him support or favorable comments to send through to the HOD, who deals with the extension. That's not my process. But to look at compliance comments, which I could support for that extension. And then when I looked at the file a day or two afterwards, or engaged with the file, and when I met him again, that is when I said to him, but you need, these are the risks I'm seeing. The extension is one issue, but how far are you, which other witnesses are you going to get? Because when you're asking for extension in our environment, you're going to say, which other witnesses are you still looking at getting? The first witness, Jeff Wicks, we don't know what happened to him, whether he's coming in or not, because the Chief of Police sent him an invite. Mgwabe seems to be not very committal about what happened there. All Mgwabe says is that he raised it with the senior management. He raised the report on the donations with the senior management. There's nothing further from there. Christine talks about certain issues of other donations dealt with this issue. And I said to him, but from a compliance perspective, the issue of nothing stops you from going on with the disciplinary. In terms of even the extension of suspension, even if the suspension occurred, there are processes in place when you're finding a matter for condonation to deal with that. And these are some of the issues I dealt with, because if the suspension had occurred, what else could you have done? If the suspension ended, you could still go on with the disciplinary.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that you're answering my question. My question really is, when he came to you, and according to your evidence, and I think you've just confirmed it now, that he came to speak to you about the pending expiry of the suspension, you seem to have gotten into the merits, but I'm more interested in what did you say to him about the suspension? Did you say to him there are grounds to to extend it, or you're getting into the merits means you got to a point where you said, no, there's no valid basis to extend? That's what I'm trying to understand, because he's coming to ask you about extension.
Okay. Chair, there was no outcome on that. My issue was when I looked at it, I said, Erasmus, this is where I'm looking at. Have you addressed these issues? We did not finalize that. I did not give anything to say that these are the issues. I'm not granting you the extension or not. Address the issues, Chair. Same thing with MAPIA. Address these issues.
So you discuss the merits. He comes to you about an extension that's about, a suspension rather, that's about to expire. You'd instead discuss the merits.
The merits were, with me, from a compliance perspective, Chair, I cannot devoid myself.
I'm not yet at why did you discuss the merits. I'm just trying to get the facts.
We are outside. We are outside.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Still on the same subject. So in paragraph 54 of your statement, you mentioned the impending expiry of the suspension to which my co-commissioner, Commissioner Balo, has just referred you. And then
we are outside. We are outside. We are outside.
Paragraph 55, you say I identified several material evidentiary gaps which posed a foreseeable risk to the sustainability of the disciplinary proceedings. And then at paragraph 60, you say, I regarded these gaps as significant. And then in paragraph 61, 62, 63, 64, you then say you met Colonel Erasmus and told him your views about the merits being what my co-commissioner engaged you on, Commissioner Baloyi. Now, I do not understand why you should have chosen to deal with the merits and not with what Colonel Erasmus came to you about. I understand your emphasis about your concern being compliance.
We outside. We outside.
Even before Ms. Sigurdsson started engaging you emphasize that. But point is, the Colonel comes to you for specific advice on an impending expiry of the suspension. Why do you not deal with that?
Chair, I did deal with it in the sense that I'll ask him to leave the file with me. Now, for a suspension, in the labor environment, suspension is not punitive. Suspension does not stop anybody, and you cannot say that if something else comes in, nothing stops you from resuspending him. That is the processes that in our city we experience that. So I had to delve into the merits to see what...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it, responding to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you. Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as the subject related to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice, show me where in your statement you dealt with it.
Did I suggest... sorry, Chair, I just want to...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you, was concerned.
It's not in the statement itself. Let me go 61, 62. Please, with your indulgence, Chair. These are the engagements I've had with Colonel Erasmus verbally when he returned to me on that date. And my issue was, if you want me to extend or support an extension of the suspension, what would be the material facts that I would have to use to...
But your statement is quite detailed, Mr. Behari. Why would you leave out something that related to what he came to you about? Your statement is quite detailed. It says nothing in response to Colonel Erasmus about the extension of the suspension.
Chair, I did not finalize the process of saying to him I support it or not.
Why not?
Because I was still waiting for him to confirm to come on another date after I've seen the documents. So when I saw the documents and I discussed it with him, and I said to him, these are the issues, I need to speak to the Chief of Police, because I'm not satisfied that we will be, and these are the issues I raised.
You see, my problem is, later when you talk about the head, Commissioner Mapie, you say that by then the suspension had expired. So you were working within very short and tight timelines. You raise all of these issues. They have nothing to do with the impending expiry of the suspension. You raise all of these issues. Time is running. What do you do about the expiry of the suspension? Bear in mind, Mr. Behari, that the suspicion, false or correct, the suspicion is that you were part of a clique that was protecting Brigadier Mkhwanazi. So those who are on the other side, in quotation marks as it were, will say you let the suspension expire exactly because you are on Brigadier Mkhwanazi's quote-unquote side, as it were. Do you get the context? I come back to my question and I ask, why did you not give advice to Colonel Erasmus on the extension of the suspension? That's what he came to you about. Not all of the issues that you then raised or chose to raise with him? Why did you not give him advice on what he came to you for?
Chair, Colonel Erasmus, on the second date after looking at the documents, I had to inquire, if you're going to you must have a reason for extending the suspension. There must be valid reasons in terms of other witnesses still to come. If he had dealt with that, he never gave me a response to my questions. Who are the witnesses? So in our engagement, if he had told me at that stage, but Mr. Bihari, we bought the stuff, I need this, that would have been finalized then, Chair. He never gave me those responses to
Had you taken a definitive view on what you saw as gaps? Had you taken a definitive view that says there are gaps and there is no way that these gaps may be plugged? Had you taken a definitive view in that regard?
No, Chair. When I had it was a conversation with Erasmus to say, these are challenges, but tell me.
Now, if you had not taken a definitive view, surely that must mean that you had not discounted the possibility that further investigations just might plug those gaps. Is that not correct?
The further investigations, Chair, would have certainly plugged it if those gaps. But mine was to say to Chief.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough for mine.
It would have been at the time, Chair, when I looked at the matter, and I said to him, "But these are the concerns I have." If he said to me, "No, I still need this witness," and so on, during our conversation, I would have had no problem with that. Chair.
No. It could not simply have depended on what he said. You are the head of legal.
Yes.
You have just accepted now that those gaps could have been plugged. Not so. You've just said now.
No, correctly, Chair.
Now. How can you throw it back at him if you yourself think that these gaps can be plugged? Is the obvious thing to do not to actually give him time to plug those gaps? If, as you say, they were capable of being plugged, why don't you say, my advice to you, which is what you've come to me about, is an extension of the suspension. That will give you time to plug these gaps. Was that not the obvious thing for you to do?
In hindsight, Chair, now that I hear you put it that way. In hindsight, now that I hear you say it that way.
You accept.
Yes, because, let me leave it at that. Then.
Was it not obvious even at the time? I don't think it's enough for you to say that in hindsight you accept. Was it not obvious even at the time? Why put stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block without giving him solutions? He has come to you for a solution.
Chair, at the time, the solution was for me to say, go and complete the investigations. Go and do the stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And for that to happen, Mr. Behari, he needs time. And he can only have enough time if you agree to the extension of the suspension. The suspension was not was for a purpose. It was not for the sake of it. Suspension should be removed from the system for proper investigations to take place. So why do you not give him time to do that by assisting him with what he came to you for, extending the suspension? It's not enough to say in hindsight you agree with me.
Chair, when he came to me, it was about supporting the extension of a suspension. We had an engagement. I said to him, these are what I think are problematic. These are things we have to close, and these are the witnesses we have to deal with. It never didn't finalize. I said, can I speak to the chief of police? And then the next meeting was the chief of police called me. But that was by the time the suspension had lapsed. But I didn't deal with any
Effectively, you let the suspension expire. Mr. Behari, you let the suspension expire.
Chair,
you are raising all the problems with him, and you say, I'm going to speak to the chief of police, and by the time you speak to the chief of police, the suspension has expired. You let it expire.
Chair, but Chair, there was never an intention to let the suspension expire. My intention was to make sure that we have all the processes, because as I said, applying the laws to say that a suspension is not punitive. Nothing stops us from still carrying on and saying that we have new information to resuspend. The HOD HR could have resuspended. But for me, looking at it, and I know you mentioned that I'm going on about the compliance issue. That was what was important to me. How do you finalize these gaps? And Erasmus could not give me at that stage any response, but it could be taken as, and I say to you that I let it lapse, but it was never my intention. My intention was to look at how do we finalize and close all the gaps. The suspension could always have gone back and said to the HOD, let's resuspend. There's been other cases where we've resuspended. Suspension lapse, we resuspended.
Yes. You see, I would understand you, Mr. Behari, on your point about the possibility of continuing with investigations even when the person is back with their suspension having expired. I would understand if you were saying that, having told Colonel Erasmus in so many words that, Colonel, I have all these gaps which need to be plugged, but let the suspension expire. You can continue with your investigation to plug these gaps with Brigadier Mkwanazi back at work. I would understand if that was your approach and if that was what you communicated to Colonel Erasmus. You never did that. You are now stating this in the witness box.
Chair, because as I said, that is the policies of the city. These are legislation.
I understand the policies. I understand the prescripts. But the point I'm raising relates to your response to Colonel Erasmus when he comes to you for advice. Sitting there now, you tell us that in accordance with our prescripts, even if a suspension has expired, investigations may continue. You are saying that in the witness box, but Colonel Erasmus came to you for advice. You never responded to him that way. That is the point I'm raising. It's different from the question of prescripts that you are raising.
Chair, as I can say, is I focused on the issues. Colonel Erasmus, as I said, I'm aware of the processes in terms of suspensions. If the suspension lapses, we've dealt with that previously, where we can always suspend again, because there's new issues that came in.
Can you please focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? Please,
but that was
please do not focus on the prescripts. I understand them.
Okay, but
Can you focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? That's my issue.
Chair, there was no definitive response to Colonel Erasmus. I did say to him I will discuss it also with the Chief of Police, because even if the suspension lapsed then, I could have still discussed it with the Chief and said, right, once we finalized it, let's go proceed further on that issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? After the suspension lapsed, you would have been aware, because you say in your statement it was impending, the lapse. After it had lapsed, did you ever say to Erasmus and to Mapiaye, in the light of the serious allegations mentioned in Erasmus's investigation, the city has the power to resuspend, so I advise you to consider that as an option. Did you ever do that?
Now, I didn't say it in so many words, because it is available within the HR space that you can do that.
No, but
I did not.
Either you did or you did not. And if you did not, just say, I did not advise
Chair,
them.
I did not give them that. After Erasmus finished off with Erasmus, there was a break with the Chief of Police. The issue of suspension then never came out thereafter, because there was other issues. I understand that, I don't know how far that process is followed, but it seems to be, when I spoke to the Chief of Police on the 21st.
You are the head of legal within Ekurhuleni. You know if the power to resuspend is there in the prescripts. The reason Erasmus came to you in the first place was he was aware of the impending period, and he was asking you for support. You are now aware that the period has come and gone, and the effect of that is that Mkwanazi is back at work. You know that.
Yes.
And you're now engaging with the two of them, Mapiaye and Erasmus, on the seriousness, and we'll still come back to that later on, the seriousness of the allegations. But as head of legal, at no point do you advise the city manager or Mapiyeye or Erasmus that there is a power to resuspend. These are serious allegations. Erasmus probably needs time to plug all these gaps. I find that astonishing.
Chair, if I may, when I raised those issues with both Mapiye and Erasmus, I had nothing further after my last meeting with Chief of Police. Now, if he had come back and we've plugged the gaps, but there was no response due to the nature of issues I've raised with the Chief of Police. There was no further comeback to me. And if let's say we've addressed the issues that you raised in our meeting, can we now go on? And I would have said, yes, certainly, let's go to a resuspension. That is how we've done resuspension, to say, this is what the initial circumstances were. We've addressed that, and now we can go on. But that matter seemed to have stopped or stalled. The last was on the 21st of June. And then I heard nothing further from that.
Mr. Bihari, I have an issue with the notion that Colonel Erasmus approached you on the issue of the suspension. You didn't tell us why he wanted the extension of the suspension, because in your statement you say that he told you that he had concluded his investigation and wanted an extension pending the disciplinary action. Why did he want the extension pending the disciplinary action if the investigation, according to him, had been concluded?
Chair, those were the issues when he came to me saying that the investigation was concluded. He wanted me to support an extension. Now, if you look at the conclusion of that, when I raise these issues, but is your investigations complete? And given the fact of the witnesses that you're going to call for the disciplinary inquiry, I extended that to say, but these are the witnesses. Do you not have to revisit anything? Are there any other witnesses? Do you have to get a statement from Mr. Jeff Wicks? Do you have to look at the engagements with Mwabe, Christine? So, if those had been completed and returned to me, certainly we could have suspended. But anyway, I would have supported another suspension through the HR processes.
Yes, but I think that goes to if the investigation is not complete. He comes to you and says the investigation is complete. I've concluded my investigation, but I still want an extension pending the disciplinary action. Surely those reasons must be different to I still have an investigation to conclude. And if those reasons are different, you can't even go into the merits because he said to you, I've concluded my investigation, but I want the extension suspended pending the disciplinary action. So there must have been a different reason other than the conclusion of the investigation, other than filling gaps, because he comes to you on the premise that the investigation has been concluded. And you know as a lawyer that one of the reasons could be that the safety of the witnesses if he comes back to work, or that he might intimidate workers or he might influence evidence. You in your statement, you don't say why he asked for the extension. And in light of the suggestion that Chief of Police Mapiyeye says you took the docket from him, he was pressurized to give the docket to you. It seems to me that Colonel Erasmus' approach for an extension is a convenient explanation as to why you inserted yourself into this process in the first place. Because he had no reason to ask you for the extension. We have no record of him even requesting the extension, and it would seem to me that he would go to someone else who had already been involved in the process, like the Chief of the Police or head of HR, to speak to them about the extension. So you aren't able to tell us what he asked you the extension for, what was the motivation for it, because the investigation was concluded. And all that you give him in response to that is gaps about an investigation that he told you has been concluded. And that is, I think, the difficulty that we have, is that you're not telling us why he came to you in the first place. It couldn't have been to finalize his investigation.
Chair, Mr. Erasmus never came to me to grant an extension. He never came to me to grant an extension. He gave to me to say that the process of extensions is with the HR process. I need some comments to support that. And then I started, okay, Tinus, Henny, is your case finished? You say I see your report says investigation is complete on this day. So what do you need the extension for? And if you need the extension, are there any other witnesses that you still need to secure? Are there, because in my environment here, you don't grant an extension for the mere asking. I've got to apply my mind to say, well, what else is still required? And if there is a process, then after that, to say, I've raised, and look at, are you going to close up the gap with Christine? Are you going to close up the gap with Guabe? These are some of the issues. I think I've documented that in terms of the issues I raised. So there was never approach to me to grant an extension. It was to support that. And I engaged with it to say, this is what our issues are, and what are the reasons for. You have to have the reasons why. I could say to the HOD HR, I support these reasons. Can we go on?
Yes.
Mr. Behari, in your paragraph 54,